came through. They finally did announce the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. And lo and behold, it is a rabid Zionist. This woman, Maria Corina Machado, won the Nobel Peace Prize, and corporate media is singing her praises and saying what a fighter she was for the Venezuelan people. But they're not telling you who this woman really is. Case in point, we'll bring in this clip here from CNN. Look at the way they praise Maria.
The Nobel Peace Prize for 2025 to Maria Corina Machado. She is receiving the Nobel Peace Prize for her tireless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela.
The Nobel Peace Prize winner, Maria Corina Machado from Venezuela, Latin America. We do want to go now live to our Selma Abdelaziz, who is in London, here to give us a little bit more context of maybe why this is the recipient this year and what the background is here.
It is very easy to see, Brian, why she was chosen by the Nobel Committee. This is a woman who has dedicated her life to her country, Venezuela, which is, of course, now suffered under an economic crisis, under what is widely seen as a dictatorship, under increasing repression. And she has faced off with those authorities both boldly, bravely, and unbowingly. Just to go over a little bit of who she is, she was elected a member of the National Assembly in 2011. She held that seat for nearly 3 years and was eventually stripped of that seat. She tried to run for presidential elections and was also removed from the ballot, and that's not due to her popularity. Brian, there is an understanding that she has deep popularity on the ground and a huge movement behind her. About a year ago, she went into hiding, fearing for her life. We understand she remains in hiding. She recently did an interview with Elle magazine, speaking of that experience, saying that she's barely seen the sun in months, but that she continues to fight for what she believes in.
She looked like she in the sun to me, don't she? Okay, so let me say something here. Listen to the way that they describe Maria. Now, they're not going to tell you the things about Maria that I'm going to tell you, right? So my job as independent media is to tell you the corners of these stories that corporate media omits from their discussion. Maria is basically another Western puppet. And I've heard, oh my God, the past couple of days, all I've heard is, oh, they gave it to this woman. She's such a fighter for her people in Venezuela. Let me show you who Maria really is, because you can see even the way that they're talking about her there on CNN. This is the same woman that begged Donald Trump to bomb her country. Check this out. Shout out to Normal Island News. Venezuelan woman who begged Trump to bomb her country wins the Nobel Peace Prize. I kid you not, you guys. This is wild. Listen to this. Maria Corina Machado has become the first person since Barack Obama to win the Nobel Peace Prize for doing absolutely nothing. Actually, that nothing might be unfair because Machado has repeatedly called for the U.S. and Israel to invade her country. She has steadfastly supported Israel's genocide, so you know she's a good egg. Yesterday, I built all your hopes up by suggesting Trump might win the Nobel Peace Prize, but at least you can console yourself with the fact that the CIA did. In a heartwarming moment, Machado dedicated her big win to Donald Trump. It is undeniable that Machado is a woman of peace who truly loves her people. Back in 2018, we were pretending Juan Guaido was the rightful leader of Venezuela. She made the following request. I am sending a letter today to Mauricio Macri, president of Argentina, and to Netanyahu, prime minister of Israel, to ask them to apply their force and influence to advance in the dismantling of the criminal Venezuelan regime intimately linked to drug trafficking and terrorism. So obviously, this person here who's writing is being sarcastic here a little bit. But that's who this woman is. That's who Maria, this is who they gave the Nobel Peace Prize to. She's another Zionist. And she is using the, oh, come in and bomb the country to get rid of the drug trafficking and all of that. That's what they use as an excuse and a reason to implement regime change. She's just another Western puppet. They don't give it to true fighters. That's what people really have to understand. Then she went on, by the way, to dedicate her Nobel Peace Prize to Donald Trump. So let's make the connection. That right there let you know Maria, Donald Trump, deep state, Zionism, regime change, they're all connected in this. And I'm going to show you again what they mean when they say we have to bring democracy there. It's not about democracy. It's about regime change. They want to install who they want. By they, I mean the West, usually the United States. So this is who CNN is applauding. This is why corporate media is so bad, right? Let me show you a little bit more about her. Let's go on here. Again, shout out to Zionist Tracker. This is who she is. Maria Machado, Venezuelan politician, Zionist. One day, we'll have a close relationship between Venezuela and Israel. The struggle of Venezuela is the struggle of Israel. This is who they gave the Nobel Peace Prize to. And this is all a part of the West plan for regime change in Venezuela. They want someone like Maduro out because they want to install a Western puppet. Now, they're going to use the excuse of Venezuela has all these gangs and drugs, etc. Man, we got gangs right here in the U.S. We have gangs. Every country has gangs, as far as I know. So that's the excuse that they use. Just like they had to give you an excuse to overthrow Saddam Hussein, to kill Gaddafi. They always come up with something. This person is a dictator. They're killing all their people. This person is trafficking in drugs. We got to save the women and the children. And I don't think that works so much anymore nowadays, because you literally just watch the United States continue to give Israel weapons and aid while they were killing women and children. So I don't think the women and children thing works the way that it used to. Now they got to come up with other reasons. So now we're moving on to the drug trafficking phase. But they see her as the hero. This is who they gave it to. Not Greta Thunberg, not anyone that was on the Freedom Flotillas, of course, because they don't fit the Western narrative. They're not going to give it to real freedom fighters. They're going to give it to someone that is trying to implement regime change. And oftentimes people who are war criminals. Like, I'll show you the list in just a second. Brian Berlatek spelled this out so well. He said the U.S. National Endowment for Democracy, also known as NED, congratulates U.S. puppet for receiving fake U.S. influence Nobel Peace Prize. The U.S. NED, far from being defunded or dismantled, has just congratulated U.S.-funded Venezuelan opposition leader Marina Corina Machado for receiving the Nobel Peace Prize. The prize has long been used to create the illusion of legitimacy for functionaries of U.S. hegemony around the globe, working against, not for peace. Everybody understand that part? It's usually given for people that are not trying to implement peace. The NED statement admits Maria had joined NED activities as recently as last year. What a coincidence. With her whole movement since the early 2000s has been funded by the U.S. government via the NED. Just another Western puppet. This only further exposes the prize as a deep state stamp of approval and only further exposes who and what Donald Trump has been all along. What I tell you. Because here's the thing. You don't fight the deep state by promoting the deep state, working with the deep state. But Donald Trump knew that that would sell people. So he says, we're going to take out the deep state, but he wasn't really going to do that. That was just to get votes. It goes on to say here, NED congratulated Maria for receiving the Nobel Peace Prize. And Brian highlighted this here. When Maria Corina joined NED in 2024 Democracy Awards, she spoke powerfully of the moment her country is living through. We are seeing a unique, unprecedented social movement growing day after day, defeating fear, getting all people back together around the values we share. We want to live with dignity, with freedom, and with our families together. This is the warning that came from Brian Burlatek when he was on this show. When we hear about some of these social movements that are happening in countries throughout the world, we need to look and see who is funding those movements. I didn't get it right with Nepal, and Brian explained it to me. So now I know to look into the funding, because oftentimes these social movements are implemented by the US, by the West, to give people the idea that, look, the people are fighting back against a dictator. But you got to understand, this isn't about that. It's all funded by Western money, nonprofits, to implement regime change. And what it does is it causes chaos, and people like stir in the streets and all that kind of stuff. And they say, look, the people want to be liberated. The people want a new leader. The US then points to that and uses it as an excuse to take out the current leader and to install the puppet that they want. So what is NED? And I'm going to show you one of the things that you need to look for. Let's go to part 2 here. NED. Vocabulary matters. National Endowment for Democracy. Keyword, democracy. This is what I want you to focus on here for a second, folks. Check this out. NED is an independent nonprofit foundation dedicated to the growth and strengthening of democratic institutions around the world. Stop. That part right there. Peep this, fam. Strengthening democratic institutions around the world. Growth and strengthening democratic institutions. Pay attention to that word democracy. So when we're talking about geopolitics, oftentimes that refers to regime change. This is something I've just come to learn over time. We are going to implement democracy in Venezuela. We're going to implement democracy in this country, in that country, in this country, and that means regime change. But democracy sounds nicer. So that's the word that they use. So NED is a nonprofit, but this is what Brian Burlatek was talking about when he said, you know, just because something is a nonprofit doesn't mean it's a good nonprofit. So you have nonprofits that are being used to fund and push regime change. And Maria was a part of that. So she's connected to this. Donald Trump, in 2023, he admitted that he wanted to overthrow Venezuela's president. Listen to this.
Venezuela. How about we're buying oil from Venezuela? When I left, Venezuela was ready to collapse. We would have taken it over. We would have gotten all that oil. It would have been right next door. Venezuela. How about we're buying oil from Venezuela? When I left, Venezuela was ready to collapse. We would have taken it over. We would have gotten all that oil.
We would have taken it over. We would have gotten all that oil. So, I mean, one thing I would say about Trump is he tells you everything. Like he's really upfront about things, right? Trump has what I like to call no filter. Like he just kind of says these things. Other presidents kind of keep it kind of, under wraps and will say, oh, we got to liberate the people in Venezuela. We need to implement democracy in Venezuela. Maduro is a dictator. Donald Trump goes, yeah, I wanted to get rid of them and overthrow and get all their oil. That's what it's really about. Don't you guys think it's weird that all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, we care about drug trafficking that's coming from Venezuela? Really? After all these years? The resources are drying up. I told people before we should not continue to just depend on the resources like oil, coal, etc. And the US government is at the point where they're trying to find other places to get those resources. And Venezuela has billions of barrel oil. So that's what this is really all about. Now, I just want to show you something here as well. These are the people who have won the Nobel Peace Prize. So I just want to show you how corrupt the Nobel Peace Prize can be. From Kissinger to Sukai, Obama to Machado, the Nobel Peace Prize has rewarded architects and enablers of war and massacres that serve Western imperial interests. Look at this. So we got Maria. I already told you about Maria. Zionist, basically Western puppet. Henry Kissinger authorized deadly bombings in Cambodia and Laos. 2 Nobel Committee members resigned in protest. That was 1973. 1978, Menachem Begin, Israeli regime, former leader of the Zionist militia, responsible for massacres of Palestinians. This is who they give the award to. Suki, architect of the mass murder of minority Muslims in Myanmar. 1994, Shimon Peres, David Ben-Gurion's disciple, Israeli regime. He developed Israel's first nuclear bomb, expanded illegal settlements, and led the military aggression in Lebanon. They gave a Nobel Peace Prize to a guy who expanded Israeli settlements, who kicked Palestinians out of their home. The Nobel Peace Prize means the exact opposite of peace. And I'm surprised more people haven't caught on to this. We can go on. Jimmy Carter, 2002, supported genocidal regimes in Vietnam and East Timor, backed dictators in Nicaragua and Iran during his presidency. That's 2002. 2009, Barack Obama oversaw deadly drone warfare and military strikes across the West and South Asia during his presidency. I also add, don't forget, bombed all those brown kids in Libya. 2023, Nergis Mohammadi, a West-backed provocateur of deadly anti-government riots in Iran. And now Maria. So the Nobel Peace Prize doesn't actually mean peace. The name is a joke. And I saw a lot of people on social media that have kind of woken up to this, and they were pushing back on it, not just because it was given to Maria, but also because it wasn't given to actual freedom fighters, like the people, the activists that were part of the flotillas, for example. More people are waking up, and no, we're not going to take it. We're not. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.